Hello. Welcome to episode 3 of Power of Power BI series presented to you by the Visual Appeal. Here we are at the most awaited episode of this series, visualizations. We will learn to pictorially analyze data with graphs, charts, and at the end of this episode, you will be able to create your own creative dashboard.
Before we start counting calories again, here's a bird's eye view of what we will be covering in this episode. We will visualize the data in terms of tables and matrices. We will use card and multi-row card along with slicers. We will also use geographical charts, pie, tree, donut charts, and scatter plots to create beautiful dashboards. We'll finally end with creating funnel charts, column charts, and line stacked column charts. I hope you guys are excited. Let's dive in.
Before we proceed to explore visualizations in Microsoft Power BI, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being a part of this visual appeal journey. Over the past week, I received multiple queries, and one most common query was how to handle dynamic data. What if we have to keep adding rows or adding data to our base file over a period of time? Is it possible to just hit the refresh button in Microsoft Power BI and to reflect the new data in the same dashboard? The answer to your question is a big yes. There are multiple ways of pulling in data into Microsoft Power BI. The screen that you see in front of you is an Excel that's hosted on Microsoft SharePoint. It's the same Count Your Calories database that you can recognize. What I'm going to do is copy the URL right here, and let's jump to Microsoft Power BI to see how to upload this file. I'm going to hit on Get Data, and let me select More just to show you the wide array of sources from which data can be imported into Microsoft Power BI. You can literally import data from multiple sources like your SQL database and multiple other sources right here. What I'm going to do is show the way you can upload any data that's hosted on the web. So let me select web here. So it's prompting me to enter the URL. I'm going to paste the copied URL. Now you can see that the URL has a lot of characters after the file type. The file that's hosted on SharePoint is an Excel file, so the file type is XLSX. And I'm going to delete all the characters after the file type and hit on OK. When I do that, it displays all the sheets in my file. I'm going to go ahead and select the listing sheet and hit load as usual. It's going to take a while, and you will have your listing sheet uploaded in your Microsoft Power BI desktop. So any change that you make in your SharePoint version of Count Your Calories database will be reflected in Microsoft Power BI desktop version when you hit the refresh button right here.
Now that we've created a connection between the Count Your Calories file on SharePoint to Power BI, let's go ahead and start with the most basic and frequently used visualization, the table. To add any visualization to the blank canvas, all you need to do is click on that particular visualization icon. We are going to go ahead and click on the table icon right here. You can hover your mouse around these icons to know the names of the icons that you're clicking. So let me click on the table icon. I'm making it a tad bit bigger by dragging on the arrows. All right. Now let's go ahead and add parameters to our table. To add the column headers to the table, all you need to do is drag the column headers from the fields pane and drop it into the visualizations pane right here. So let me add temperature. Let me also add beverage category, and let's analyze sugars for now. If you had gone through episode 2 on intrinsic and extrinsic measures, you will know that you can easily change the calculation of sum of sugars to average, minimum, maximum by clicking on the tiny down arrow right here. I'm going to keep it at average for now. Usage of intrinsic and extrinsic measures purely depends on what data you want to analyze and how you want to analyze the data. I'll add a couple of more parameters. Let's say maximum protein, minimum caffeine, and I'll leave it at that. Now that we've created a table with all the parameters in it, let's go ahead and format it. For that, I will use format your visual segment right here. I'm going to click on it. And you will see various options popping up right in front of you. And we are going to go over it one by one. So there are two sections here. One is the visual section and one is the general section. Let's start with the visual section. Style presets is my most favorite when it comes to tables because it just formats your table in a click of a button. Let me show you using minimal, bold header. My favorite is the condensed, but you can play around with all these options. It's just super simple. For me, I think condensed looks more professional. The grid option here allows you to change the color of the grid line, be it your horizontal grid line or your vertical grid line. You can even change the width of the grid line. If you want thicker horizontal grid lines or a thicker vertical grid lines, you can just go for it. All you need to do is use the up arrow, down arrow to select the color. You have to hit on the drop down here and you will have a wide range of colors. You can even choose a border for your visualization. Top, bottom, left, right, all. And you can increase or decrease the padding. Let's go ahead and hit values. You can change your font name and font size here. I'm going to use Arial and I'm going to increase the font size to, let's say, 15. Okay. So you can notice that this increases the font size of only the values and not the column headers. That is the temperature, beverage category, average sugar. Those column headers are still small. So you can change the text color, background color right here. For the column headers, we'll come down here and choose Arial and we will increase the font size to 15 again. If you want to increase the size of your visualization, you can just drag using the arrows. And let's go ahead and see the totals option. You can keep the total value on or you can just turn it off. So I am going to turn it off in this case. If you want to apply settings to a specific column, let's say a temperature column alone or a beverage category column alone, you can do so here. Cell elements, if you want to apply a specific background color for a single column, you can do that here. Image height, I think you can adjust it using the arrows instead of, typing out the image height here. Moving on to the general category, you have properties here to adjust the size. But again, I would prefer resizing it using the arrows because it's way too simpler. And the next one is title. Let's say Starbucks beverage analysis. And you can change the font name and the font size here as well. And you can choose the alignment if you need a center alignment, left or right. Visual border turns on the border for the entire visualization. You can see there is a border around the table right now, which is created by the visual border. So tooltips is a very important visualization formatting tool, but we will cover that when we talk about column charts. Let's park that for now. And that's about formatting a table. Now let's turn our attention to matrix. I'm sure most of us here are familiar with a pivot table in Microsoft Excel. Matrix in Power BI does the exact same function. So to switch this table into a matrix, I'm going to select this table visualization on my canvas and click on the matrix icon right here. So you can just convert table into matrix by just a click of a button. Because there are too many parameters in the data, I think I'm going to switch up the columns and rows. I'm going to have beverage category as columns and temperature as rows. All right, looks better. The visualization formatting options for matrix is pretty much the same as table, except for two new things, the column subtotals and the row subtotals. You can have them on or switch it off by just using the toggle button right here. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to add beverage prep as a column right here. And as soon as I do that, you will notice small icons appearing on top of my table right here. Now let's explore each and every one of them. I'm going to turn on drill down and hit on hot drinks. Now it will show only hot drinks, but it shows both beverage prep and temperature. I'm going to drill up. Then this goes one level down. So it does not show temperature, but it shows only the beverage prep. I'm going to drill up again. And I'm going to hit on this, which expands to everything. It shows both temperature and beverage prep. But now when I see this matrix, I think it's just too much data and it's so unreadable. I might not be able to make sense out of it. So this is where Slicer comes to our rescue. Slicer is located right here. I'm going to click on this. Now let me go ahead and add a few parameters to this slicer. I'm going to add temperature here, and I'm going to reduce the size of this slicer. Let me delete temperature from matrix. So I'm just going to click on the tiny cross right here. It gets deleted. And to make this look even more pretty, I'm going to add another slicer. And I'm going to bring the beverage prep right here. And I'm going to delete that from the matrix as well. Okay. And let's format this slicer a bit because there are too many options for beverage prep. I think it would be easy if I had it as a drop-down menu. So I'm selecting this, clicking on the tiny arrow right here and selecting drop-down. So it's appearing as a drop down. Let's format this a bit. I'm going to take it to the top. I'm going to take this as well here. I'm easily moving around all these objects in my canvas by just dragging it and dropping it with my mouse pointer. Let's click a few parameters, right? So I'm selecting cold drinks and I'm selecting everything that's made with soy milk. And you can see the data in the matrix that's changing for the parameters or the filters that I click using Slicer. One more interesting visualization is the cards. Now, if I want to know the number of beverages, right? So I'm going to say count distinct. So count distinct does not count the duplicate beverages. It counts only the distinct beverages. For example, let's assume banana chocolate smoothie appears thrice in our data set, and we want to understand the number of cold drinks that are prepared with soy milk at Starbucks. We don't want to be counting banana chocolate smoothie thrice, right? It's just one drink. We want to count it as one drink. So the count distinct function counts the number of beverage names that are distinct. Now let's select count distinct, and we have 4 beverages. You use a card visualization when you want a specific number to pop up in the entire dashboard. If you want to take this up a notch and display the names of these 4 beverages, you use a multi-row card. You drag and drop the beverage name here. And here you go. These are the 4 drinks which are served cold and are prepared with soy milk at Starbucks. Now let's spend the next couple of minutes formatting this dashboard and making it look pretty. So I'm selecting visualization right here, which is a slicer in the drop-down form. I'm hitting on format visual. I'm going to general settings and I'm trying to introduce a visual border so that we can differentiate between various visualizations that we are going to be adding to this canvas. And I'm going to introduce rounded corners as well. So this is how it's going to look like. I can use a format painter to copy the formatting to all the other visualizations on this page. So I can select a visualization, select format painter, click the next visualization. So the borders are introduced. I'm going to do that for this card as well. We can always change the background color as well as the font color of any of these visualizations by clicking on the visualization to select it and then hitting on format your visual option. You can change the font name, size, and color of the headers. You can also change the background of the header. You can also change the color of the values and the background of the values right here. If you want to take it up a notch and jazz up your dashboard a little bit more, you can hit on the View tab right here and select from the wide range of themes that Power BI has to offer. If you want something colorful, you can choose Bloom or Tidal. There are more themes for you to browse right here, but for now, I think I'll stick to executive. Now let's go ahead and add a title to our dashboard. We can do that by selecting Insert tab and clicking on Text box. Now let's name the sheet Nutritional Value Analysis. Let's change the font name to Arial Black, make it a tad bit bigger, say 32. You can change the color here. I'm going to change it to blue, and you can use all the formatting options right here to enhance the look of your title. So I'm going to drag and drop this title on top of my page, and I'm going to resize it a bit. All right. Before we proceed further, let me introduce you to a functionality called Edit Interactions. Now you see 2 slicers on this page, right? One is the beverage prep slicer and other is the temperature slicer. And every time you select something on the slicer, you can see that all the visualizations on this particular page, be it the table, be it the card, be it the multi-row card, everything changes with your selection in each of these slicers. But imagine a scenario where you don't want these 2 slicers to interact with the table. You only want the values on card and multi-row card to change. So how do you do that? Let's select this slicer. Let's go to Format and let's hit Edit Interactions. Once you do that, you will notice tiny icons appearing on top of each of your visualization. One is the none icon and the second one is the filter icon. Now, as we have selected the beverage prep slicer, I do not want it to interact with my table visualization, so I select none. Same way, I select the temperature slicer and I select none for the table. Let me switch off Edit Interactions and let's see what happens. Let me hit cold drinks here. You will see that there is absolutely no change on the tables visualization, but there is a change in the card and the multi-row card. Let's do that for beverage prep as well. I'm selecting tall and you can see that the table remains, but the count of beverage and the beverage category changes. You can rename a tab by simply double-clicking on the sheet name right here. I'm going to name this Nutritional Value Analysis. You can add a tab by just hitting on the tiny plus symbol right here. And let's go ahead and do some geographical analysis. Any kind of locational analysis that you want to do, be it location wise revenue, cost, or in this case, we are going to analyze location wise calorie consumption. This particular type of analysis is very, very visually appealing and it makes the data super simple and easy to understand. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to select this tiny map icon right here. There are two types of geographical maps in Microsoft Power BI, and this one is my personal favorite. I'm going to add state to location. When we use this type of visualization, we should always ensure that there is some sort of locational data in the database, be it the latitude, longitude related data or just the location details. So for the bubble size, what we are going to do is we are going to add calories. So the size of the bubble will be directly proportional to the calories consumed in that particular state. So smaller the bubble, lower the number of calories consumed in that state. See, in case of New Jersey, it's a very, very tiny bubble compared to, let's say, Texas, which has a larger bubble. What we can also do is add legend to our visualization. So I'm adding temperature as a legend. And now you will also see the proportion of hot drinks versus cold drinks in that particular state, along with the bubble size, which ranges according to the calorie consumption. You can see the legend for temperature right here. So blue constitutes cold drinks and the green constitutes hot drinks. You can change the color of this visualization by using the format your visual. You know how to do it, so you can go right ahead and do it. I will also talk about tool tips here. Let's say you also want to know the caffeine content in each of the states for each of the parameters that we have selected. You can add to the tooltips, and what happens is that when you hover your mouse around the visualization, you will not only see the sum of calories, you will also see the sum of caffeine. And if you want to see, let's say, average caffeine, minimum caffeine, you know how to do it. It's all about intrinsic measures. All right, let's go ahead and check out the other geographical visualization, which is called the filled map, and which is right here. I'm going to hit that. This kind of visualization does not give you bubbles, but the entire state gets filled. And according to me, it's best if you use this visualization if you have only one parameter. Let's say, for example, you just want to show state-wise sum of calories and average caffeine. You can go for this kind of visualization, but this will not show the size of calories in terms of bubbles, in terms of size of bubbles, or anything of that sort. So I hope you are clear with geographical representation. Let's move on to pie charts, tree charts, and donut charts. Curious to find out if the frequency of visit to Starbucks affects the average time spent in the store by any means. So that is going to be our next analysis. We will add a new tab and let's name this frequency of visit versus average time spent. Let's also add a title which says frequency of visit versus average time spent analysis. Let's change this to Arial black, make it 32, make it blue. Let's resize this. All right, and to perform this analysis, we are going to import Coffee Connections dataset. Let's go to Get Data. Select Excel workbook, select the Coffee Connections workbook, and select the tab that we want to import. I'm going to select Load. All right, I have it loaded here. And for this analysis, let's use a pie chart. Let's add parameters to the pie chart. I want to analyze the proportion of frequency of visits. So Let me add frequency of visit to the legend. We have never, rarely, monthly, weekly, daily. Perfect. Sounds good. And let's add the time spent in values. It shows the sum of time spent. Let's change it to average. Let's also add, let's say, nearest Starbucks to the tooltips, just so we have an idea about the average distance people travel. Okay, so we see that when a person visits Starbucks rarely, which is represented by this green color, the average time spent is 65 minutes. I think he's not familiar with the menu. He takes so much time in deciding the drink he wants. And let's compare that to someone who visits Starbucks daily, which is represented by this blue color. Maybe he's already familiar with the menu, that he has a favorite drink in mind. He just walks and orders without any second thoughts and walks away. The average time spent by him is just 18.5 minutes compared to 65 minutes spent by someone who rarely visits Starbucks. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Okay. You can also document the conclusion of your analysis by again inserting a text box. Let me say conclusion, and the conclusion goes the average time spent decreases with increase in frequency of visits, right? So let's change it to Arial Black. Let's just make it a tad bit bigger. And we'll bring this right here. There are two more charts that are very, very similar to pie chart. So one is the donut chart, which is right here, and the other is a tree map. In a tree map, the size of these boxes represent the value. So smaller size, smaller value, bigger the size, bigger value. So that's about pie chart, donut, and tree. Let's move on to scatter plot. Let's make more interesting observations from our data set. Let's go ahead and analyze the correlation between sugar and calories. So I'm going to add a new page and I'm going to name it sugar versus calories. As usual, let's add a text box and let's name it correlation between sugar and calories. Let's change this to Arial Black, make it 32, make it blue, resize the title. And for this particular analysis, we are going to use a scatter plot, which is right here. Let's add some parameters to the scatter plot. X-axis will have calories. Let's say do not summarize so that it scatters around. And let the y-axis have sugars. Let's say do not summarize again. And let's add temperature to the legend. Beautiful. Now we see a positive correlation between the sugars and calories in a beverage. So as the sugar content increases, the total calories in the beverage also increases. There's a positive correlation, you guys. So let's document the conclusion of our analysis. So the conclusion is that there is a positive correlation between sugars and calories. Let's make this Arial and let's make this a tad bit bigger. All right. Let me introduce you to one of the most fun features in Microsoft Power BI. It's called the play axis and scatter plot. For that, I'm going to remove the legend and I'm going to switch it back to sum. And let me add beverage category to play axis. You will see a tiny play button on the left here, and the magic happens as soon as I hit the play button. So you will see that for each beverage category, a play or a video version of sugars and calories correlation. That was cool, right? All right, now that we understand that there's a positive correlation between sugars and calories, why don't we move on to our next analysis? Now it's time to have some fun with funnel charts. I'm going to add a new tab and we are simply going to analyze average calories. Let me add a text box as usual, and I'm going to name this Analyzing Average Calories Based on Beverage Category. Let's change this to Arial Black, increase the size to 32, color to blue, and let's resize the heading. All right, let's add the funnel chart, which is right here. And let's go ahead and add our parameters. Let's add beverage category here. And let's add calories to values and switch it to average. Here you will see that the width of the bar is actually proportionate to the value, and bar with the highest value, in this case, smoothies with the highest average calories, sits at the top. The rest of the bars sit below in the order of decreasing value and size. So coffee with the lowest average calorie sits at the bottommost part of the funnel. So funnel charts, as you can see, are pretty easy to read, and it can also be used to represent stages in a linear process. So let's assume you want to onboard a vendor and you have various steps associated with it. You have the lead stage, you have the proposal stage, the contract, and the close stage. You can visually analyze the health of the process and track it using these funnel charts. Before we move ahead, we saw matrix, we saw tables, we saw slices, we saw all these cards, geographical maps, pie charts, donuts, scatter plot, funnel, and next is the waterfall chart. So a waterfall chart actually shows a running total as Power BI adds and subtracts the value. They can be positive or negative changes. If you have, let's say, sales data, you can probably analyze how it moves month on month from January to December, the way it increases or decreases during a period. So you can probably try that out with the data that you have and let me know how it goes. Now, let's move on and use the column and line charts. I'm adding a new tab, and the next chart here is the ribbon chart. So ribbon charts help us discover which data has the highest value. They connect data and show a shaded region around the graphs. So let's first create a line and clustered column chart, which is right beside it. And then we will convert that into a ribbon chart. So I'm selecting line and clustered column chart. I'm increasing the size, and let's add parameters to this chart. I am adding beverage category to x-axis, sum of calories to y-axis. Let's add average protein as a line. And let's also add average caffeine to tooltips so that when we hover our mouse pointer, you will also see the average caffeine for each of these beverage categories. What you can also do is add temperature to the x-axis. Now you will see drill up and drill down options. So when you use this, you will see both hot drinks, classic espresso, and you will also see the cold drinks right here. You can technically see both the beverage category and the temperature. When you drill up, you will see only the beverage category. When you use these two down arrows, you will see only the temperature. So you can use these options and play around the visual. Now let's convert this into a ribbon chart. And like I told you, you will see a shaded region around the graphs. So that's about ribbon chart and line and clustered column chart. Let's move on to line and stacked column chart. The difference here is that when we use a column legend, it's going to bifurcate the bar into various legends. So what we can also do to make it more visually appealing is go to format your visual and switch on data labels so that you get to see the values right on the graph. And now when you just glance at the graph, you will know that signature espresso drinks in Utah have the maximum sum of calories, right?
So that's pretty much all I had in store for you guys in terms of visualizations. I would urge each and every one of you to try the various visualizations Microsoft Power BI has to offer. Feel free to reach out to me in case of questions or concerns. I hope you found that useful. Now, off to episode 4 on relationships. Happy learning and see you in the next video.